On the 24th of January, 1813, Jane Austen wrote, "We quite run over with books." I know how you feel, Jane. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather, and here on perhaps one of the coldest days that we have had so far this winter, hence being in my warmest sweatshirt, I thought I would get even cozier by showing you all of the books that I received in December. Also, please forgive the large red mark on my nose. That is due to having to wear N95 masks to work now. Yay, teacher life. This is, however, a huge improvement over yesterday, so I'm quite thrilled. First of all, one of my pre-orders from months ago now finally came in, and that is Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone, which is the next book in the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. I am so thrilled that this came in, and this is particularly special because I ordered it from the Poisoned Pen bookstore in Phoenix, Arizona, which means it is signed by Diana because that is her local bookstore. I am very excited to read this, however, I am going to have to do some major Wikipedia research before I read it because I have no memory of what happened in the last book. It's been 8 years since I read it, so once I'm a little bit caught up, I will go ahead and start this. Another book that I purchased was A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, and this is actually a purchase from my former college roommate and wonderful friend, Ellie. Ellie runs a wonderful Bookstagram account called Ellie's Bookshelf, which I will link down below, and she advertised that she was going to be unhauling some of her books on the app Pango Books. I've been wanting to read this book for ages, so I went ahead and I ordered it from her. So I was thrilled when it arrived, and I'm very pleased that it has that special connection to her. In addition, one of our other roommates also chimed in on Instagram saying, "Oh my gosh, definitely get that book. That's one of my favorite series." Reasons why we roomed together for many years. Next, on to books that I very kindly received as gifts. First, we have just some general bookish items. The first is this very cute magnetic bookmark featuring suffragette cartoons. So we have Votes for Women and a public meeting to welcome Emmeline Pankhurst. And these are done by the artist Alison Gardner. And I've admired this for absolute ages, so my parents picked it up for me. And it just clips itself over the page of your book. Next, from my wonderful, again, former roommate and friend Lauren, I got this beautiful bookmark. Let me turn it the right way around, which is beautiful metal cutout of some beautiful Asian-inspired flowers with this beautiful tassel. I almost don't want to use it in a book because it feels too delicate. I'm terrified I'll break it. But it is wonderful, so thank you so much, Lauren. And then next, from the wonderful Marissa of Blatantly Bookish, I received a couple of things. First, this beautiful Peacock bookmark with, again, a lovely tassel and a quote from Emily Dickinson, which just combines a lot of our favorite things. Plus, it's got a handy ruler on the back, which I thought was extra nice. It's beautiful and useful. And along with that bookmark, she also bought me The Watchmaker of Filigree Street by Natasha Pulley, which I know is one of her favorite books. I know she thought The Kingdoms by Natasha Pulley was one of her favorite books of last year. And I've been wanting to read this for ages, but I've never actually picked it up. So I'm very excited to have it. I'm actually not sure how to summarize it yet. I know it's Victorian. I know it does in fact have something to do with a watchmaker. It might be magically real. And I always get slight H.P. Lovecraft vibes from the octopus that is all over the cover. I always get Cthulhu vibes from that, although I don't think they're actually related. But I almost think it's kind of nice not to know that much going in, so I'm intrigued to see what it's actually about and if my impressions hold up. And Marissa then very kindly passed on several other books to me because she picked up the Blandings Castle series actually on my mother's recommendation and really loved them, wanted to read the rest of the series, ordered them, and due to a mailing mix-up, ended up with 2 sets. So she very, very kindly gave me the second set of a couple of Blandings Castle books. So these are books 2 through 5, I believe, of the series, and I'm not sure which is which, but we have Leave It to Smith, because the P is silent like in Delaware. Leave a comment down below if you get that reference. I'm sure very few of you will, but I'm intrigued to see if any of you do. Summer Lightning, Blandings Castle, and Uncle Fred in Springtime. So even though these weren't technically Christmas gifts, they were still lovely gifts. So thank you so, so much, Marissa, for all of your lovely gifts, and I can't wait to discuss them with you in the future. Then from my former colleague and still dear friend, Mary, I received this cookbook called Jane Austen's Table, Recipes Inspired by the Works of Jane Austen by Robert Tousley Anderson. And this looks really sweet. Apparently it pulls from all the foods that are mentioned in Jane Austen's works. So some are inspired by, say, the Box Hill Picnic, whereas others are explicitly mentioned, like white soup. So it's a mix of contemporary recipes and actual historical recipes. So I can't wait to see which of these I can actually eat. I know from watching a documentary I cannot eat white soup. Between the cream and the almond meal, I would be dead. But I'm intrigued to see what goes into these recipes, and if I can try any, I might bring those in Jane Austen July. Then from my lovely friend Amanda, she bought me the 3rd book in the Evie Dunmore series, which is Portrait of a Scotsman. She bought me the first 2 books in this series for my birthday last month, so it was really, really lovely to have the 3rd book as well. And these all follow a group of suffragette ladies in the late 1800s. I think it's the 1870s. And their desire to improve their lot in life, become better educated and more emancipated, while also falling for aristocratic men. And I read the first one. That was actually my first book of 2022, and I really enjoyed it, so I'm very much looking forward to reading the rest of the series. And then she also got me something I've been debating getting for ages, which is my own book stamp, just here. And yes, I'm blocking out bits of my name, but it says, "From the library of me, return with care," with some lovely leaves. It looks almost like a rosemary plant. It's a very herby design. And I cannot wait to try this out. I'm a little bit scared to try this out, but I'm also quite excited. And if it goes well, I might just go mad and stamp all of my books, because I cannot decide which to stamp and which not to stamp. But I will let you know, and perhaps turn that into a video. Lastly, I received a couple of nonfiction books from my parents this year. Well, mostly nonfiction. The first is The Beau Monde by Hannah Grieg, which is a nonfiction book I have been wanting for ages. Hannah Grieg is one of the foremost scholars on the Georgian and Regency periods, and this is her chronicle of high society, the ton. It might focus just on fashion, but I think it focuses on other areas of life as well, and I'm really excited to read it. They also got me this lovely little book, Jane Austen in Bath, Walking Tours of the Writer's City by Catherine Reeve. And Catherine Reeve also had an illustrated edition of some of Jane Austen's letters that I read 2 years ago for Jane Austen July. And they were okay. I found a lot of typing mistakes, actually. But I lived in Bath. I worked at the Jane Austen Center in Bath while I was there. So I'm really, really intrigued to look through the portraits of old Bath and see exactly where Jane Austen would have gone and be reminded of my time there. Next, the only fiction book in this section which is this Penguin Clothbound Classics edition of A Christmas Carol and Other Christmas Writings by Charles Dickens. As familiar as I am, and as familiar as most people in the English-speaking world are with A Christmas Carol, I've never actually read the original story. So I'm very excited to hold on to this until next Christmas when I can read it, but it also has a lot of Dickens's other Christmas writings, like I think The Cricket on the Hearth. Let's see. No, not The Cricket on the Hearth. We have Christmas Festivities, The Story of the Goblins Who Stole a Sexton, A Christmas Episode from Master Humphrey's Clock, A Christmas Carol, The Haunted Man and the Ghost's Bargain, A Christmas Tree, What Christmas Is as We Grow Older, and The Seven Poor Travelers. So I haven't heard of any of those, so I'm very excited to read this next year and let you know what I think. And lastly, we have Pride and Prejudice and Puzzles, which is a book of logic puzzles, crosswords, all sorts of brain games centered around Jane Austen's books. So for example, we have this version of Sudoku, where you have to fill in the letters that make up Walter, in honor of Sir Walter Elliot, where each letter does not repeat in each row, each column, or each box. Or indeed, these Spot the Difference paintings. I think these are so cool. I cannot wait to have access to a working photocopier so that I can solve some of these, as I really don't want to write in this book, because I'd love to be able to also use these maybe in classes or in JASNA meetings. So I really need to find a way to get myself copies to work on and keep the originals for use over and over again. And lastly is not technically a present for me. This was actually given to my father by some of our family, and that is this Barnes & Noble leather-bound edition of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Stories by Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, I read Jekyll and Hyde back in my university days, but all of his other short stories that are included in here I have never heard of. And my dad wasn't really interested, so he offered it to me. The other stories included are Will o' the Mill, Markheim, Thrawn Janet, Olalla, The Bottle Imp, The Isle of Voices, The Waif Woman, and The Body Snatcher. I haven't heard of any of those, so I'm really intrigued to keep this around, and I'll probably dip in and out of them as I feel the interest. Lastly, I was given a lot of gift cards for either my birthday or Christmas, so finally after Christmas I felt safe enough to use them, so I purchased a couple of books for myself. First of all, 2 of them have not arrived yet, but I'm expecting them within the week or so. The first is The Government Inspector by Nikolai Gogle, and this is translated from the Russian, and this is a play that I have wanted to read the original of probably since I was about 5 years old. This was featured on the television show Wishbone when I was young, and it was always one of my favorite episodes, but now that I'm older, I've never actually read the original. And it is the story of this town full of corrupt people who are then terrified when they hear that a government inspector is coming to town. And they're terrified, they want to flatter this man, and this very hapless young man and his servant stumble into the midst of this, and he is mistaken for the government inspector, and comedy ensues from there. The other book I ordered is Daughters of Night by Laura Shepard Robinson, and she is the author of Blood and Sugar, which I read in February of 2020, and I thought it was okay, but I'm really excited about this one because it features a character who I thought didn't get quite enough screen time in Blood and Sugar, and that is the character of Caro, or Caroline. Now, I can't tell you too much about who she is because I feel like that will give away spoilers for Blood and Sugar, And indeed, I'm not sure how tightly the two plots are related. But this one features Caroline, I think, seeking justice for sex workers in the late Georgian period, possibly early Regency period, when no one else will. And that sounds wonderful. So I can't wait to read it and let you all know more. The other books have all arrived, and first was The Forgotten Kingdom by Cigna Pike. This is the sequel to The Lost Queen, which I read 2.5 years ago now, and I really, really loved, so I cannot wait to read this sequel. It is, at the outset, just a Celtic fantasy tale, and it tells the story of the struggles between the old religion and the new religion, being Christianity. But it's also partially a reworking, or better, a prequel to the Arthurian legends, all from the point of view of a character who I don't believe ever turns up in the Arthurian legends. And I feel like I can't tell you more than that, because that might give away more than Pike wants you to know. But I am really intrigued to see where Langoreth goes on her journey, because we left her at quite a cliffhanger. So I cannot wait to dive into this. I've been missing some Celtic fantasy in my life. Then I ordered 2 books from Mint Editions, which is a new press that I just discovered in November when I was in New York. And they are publishing a lot of books by some well-known authors and some lesser-known authors that you cannot find in print anywhere else, or at least it's very, very rare. I purchased The Secret Adversary by Agatha Christie in their editions, and I have been fascinated to see what other books they have published. So the first one I bought was Love in Excess by Eliza Haywood, who was a novelist towards the beginning of the 18th century, who I don't know if Jane Austen actually read and if she was a direct influence on her work, but I've definitely heard her referenced in a lot of the Georgian research that I've done, and so I'm really intrigued to see what this is about. I know nothing about the plot, so I'm going to read you the summary from the back. 2 wealthy young women compete for the love of one man. According to the customs of their time, Alovisa and Amina must passively await a marriage proposal from Delmont. When an attempt to anonymously seduce her beau leads him to Amina's doorstep, Alovisa turns to subterfuge to win him over. Well, that sounds really cool. The other book I picked up from Mint Editions is Kennelworth by Sir Walter Scott. I've read 3 Sir Walter Scott books in university, and I'm really intrigued to read this one because I believe it's set in the Elizabethan era, and I think there was an opera, Il Castello di Kennelworth by Donizetti, that is another of his Tudor operas that I just found out about. So I'm intrigued to see if the 2 are related and how I feel about this. I mean, it's a 19th century novel about Tudor England. I love all of those things, so I can't see why I wouldn't love this. Next, I ordered A Glove Shop in Vienna by Eva Ebitsen, which now truly is my last Eva Ebitsen. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I believe this truly is the last book by her that I have to read. That is, for older readers anyway. And it is, I believe, a collection of short stories about winter in Vienna. Oh no, they span everywhere. It says, curl up with a collection of wintry, romantic stories that take you from 19th century Vienna, over the wild moors of Northumberland, to the snowy streets of pre-revolutionary Russia. These sound delightful. Those are all of Eva Ebitsen's typical settings, and I can't wait to have more of her cozy romance in my life. I also ordered The Firebird by Susanna Kearsley, which is a direct sequel to The Winter Sea, which was one of my favorite books of 2021. So I cannot wait to read this, although I do think I have to read The Shadowy Horses first because they are somehow related. And then lastly, 2 books that arrived today. The first is The French Lesson by Hallie Rubenhold, which is the sequel to Mistress of My Fate, which you can see just there on my shelf behind me. And I read that in November of this year. So this tells the continuing story of Henrietta Lightfoot, who we left in Paris in 1792, which, as we all know, was a very treacherous place to be. I can't tell you more than that, but I can tell you that Hallie Rubenhold's fiction is just as good as her nonfiction. So if you were a fan of The Five, The Covent Garden Ladies, or The Scandalous Lady W, then I would encourage you to check out this fiction series. And the last book to arrive was Cecily by Annie Garthwaite, which I don't think is available here in the US. I ordered it from the UK. And it tells the story of the War of the Roses through Cecily's eyes, who I believe was mother to Richard III and his brothers. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's who she was. And that premise alone sounds fantastic. And the reviews on the back are wonderful. Imogen Hermes Gower compared Cecily to Thomas Cromwell, and indeed someone else compared it to Wolf Hall, which I also loved, so I'm really excited to get to this. And there you have it. You can't see this, but if I put my hand about here, that is how high my stack of books are. They are about as tall as the camera. That I received for Christmas of 2021. Thank you so much to all of my family and friends who gave me these books or enabled me to buy these books. I cannot wait to read all of them in due course. And let me know down below if you have any further questions, if any of these sound interesting to you, or if you received any particularly exciting books. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.